We're moving on to section 1.3. And if you got the okay to move on to this section, make sure you put the date that you're watching these on here. And our 1.3 notes will answer the question, how do I multiply? I'll write a little slower here. I'm kind of cruising along here. How do I multiply by a single term? And a single term is actually called a monomial. It's kind of a weird word, but the word mono right here actually means one. And so when we talk about a monomial, I might as well just drop an arrow down right here and explain that vocabulary word. A monomial word, you won't see any pluses or minuses or any links. You'll just see a single term. The number 2 is actually considered a monomial. 4x is considered a monomial. It's a single term. 3x squared y is considered a monomial. As long as you don't see any pluses, we call it a monomial. If it was 4x plus 1, we call those a binomial. But we're not focusing a whole lot on the vocabulary here this second semester. We want to make sure you can do what you need to do. So we are going to be making sure today that we can multiply a polynomial by a monomial. It takes a little bit of going back a bit because you're going to be multiplying. We've got to remember that when we multiply, we don't multiply the exponents. If I were to write this out, I have 3 x's for x to the third, and I have 2 x's for x squared. And you'll notice that when I list them all out, I end up with 5 x's. So when we multiply, we need to remember that we actually add the exponents because there's going to be lots of multiplication. And so we need to kind of write yourself a little note that says when multiplying, I add exponents because it's tempting to multiply them because you're looking at a multiplication problem. So when I multiply, I add exponents. So let's go discuss, we haven't done one yet, but let's go discuss how we multiply by a monomial. So we'll put an example down and then we'll put the how over here in words. All right, so I'm going to put my favorite monomial in the whole wide world down here, 3x squared. And I am going to multiply it by the polynomial 2x squared minus 4x plus 8. This is just another example of hippity-hoppity distributive property. So, whoops, I'm going to erase that. That doesn't look very nice. I need to hop that on in or distribute that single term, that monomial, into everything. And when I do, I just got to remember my note here that when I multiply, I add the exponents. So when I hop this in right here, I've got 3 times 2, which is 6. I've got x squared times x squared, which gives me x to the 2 plus 2, or x to the 4th. When I hop this in, keep in mind I've got 1 positive and 1 negative. So let's write that down over here in the how so we got our signs straight. That a positive times a negative will balance out to be negative. 2 of them will balance out to be positive. So when I hop that in on that second term, I've got my 3 times 4, which is 12, but there's 1 negative sign, so it will be negative. And then x squared times x to the first, you should put that on there, is going to give me x to the 2 plus 1, or x to the third. And then on my last hop, I've got 3 times 8, which is 24, and then I have an x squared. And that's my final answer, when I'm done multiplying. So what I'd like you to do right now, we're going to write another one down, and then we'll pause the video. And I want you to see if you did it right, and then if not, fix it, and then we're done. Just small little snippets of notes here. So this is example 1. Draw a little bar here, and we're going to move right along to example 2. The next one I'd like you to do is just a simple 3x times x minus 5. So pause the video and you go do that, and then hit play and correct it. So hit pause now. All right, so when you hop this in, you get 3x to the first times x to the first, and when we multiply, we add those exponents up. So I get 3x to the 1 plus 1, which is 2. And when I hop it in over here, 3 times 5 is 15. There's one negative sign, so it'll balance out to be negative. And I'm done. So it's a nice, easy hop on in. For example 3, I'm going to put a couple variables on here. I'm going to do 4u squared v times 3u plus, let's do minus, a little minus on there, minus 5uv. All right, so let's go and write that down. I'll slow down a little bit. First thing I'm going to do is just hop that on in, and I'm going to remember that when I multiply, I add exponents. So let's go take my first hop right here. Again, if I'm writing too fast and you haven't written it down, that's why I'm doing the videos. You can always just pause, catch up, and then play again. So when I multiply 4 times 3, I get a 12. U squared times u to the first gives me u to the 2 plus 1, which is u to the third. And then I have that lonely v right there. On the second hop, I have 4 times 5, which is 20. And there's one negative in that multiplication. It's with the 5 there, so it'll be a minus 20. Then I've got u squared. Again, I'm hopping this into this term, so I'm dealing with the numbers out front. The 4 and the 5 make a 20, but then I've also got u squared and another u over here. So I'm going to have u to the third power. And for my v's, I've got one hopping in, and there's already one here. And when we multiply, we add the exponents. So I get v to the second. All right, so we are done with that one. You show me these notes, and you're kind of probably getting the drill down of how this is going to work. You show me the notes. I might ask you a question or two. I give you the worksheet. The worksheet goes well. You get 100% and you move on to the next notes. If not, we fix things. You will not be allowed to take a test until you have all notes and all homework done to at least a 70% level. So we're kind of going for accuracy, just short, small notes, but you're going to listen and make sure you're doing it really well. So we are done. What is our summary? Let's answer that question. How do I multiply by a monomial? So you go summarize it. And when we do our summary, we are basically answering our essential question at the top. So you would say to multiply by a monomial I, and then you complete it. When you've completed that summary, I'll check off your notes and I'll give you worksheet 1.3. Have a great one.